Just for a moment, relax, close your eyes, take a deep breath, exhale slowly, and repeat to yourself, may this period of study and meditation place me in harmony with the cosmic and with all my fratres and sorores on the entire surface of Earth. May it also make me receptive to the lessons and inspirations of the present hour. So mote it be. You may open your eyes, and we will begin with a brief introduction. The title of this presentation is 7 Keys to Inner Wisdom, but they are not the 7 keys. This really refers to the fact that these are not the only laws that we might study. And if you follow the recordings, as the Grand Master mentioned on Rosicrucian TV on YouTube, you will see many presentations by our dear Frater Hugh McCaig, who goes over multiple and many principles and cosmic laws. You will find the number 7 in many contexts in the wisdom traditions of the East and the West. However, these laws and principles are fundamental to our studies in the ancient and mystical order Rosicrucian. Those revealed here are part of the mystery tradition of self-transformation that is also referred to as the alchemical inner work and the search for the personal and cosmic quintessence. May you find that your desire to seek and to know more is invigorated and inspired during this week of the Amorc Winter Symposium. And we hope to see you again in the springtime in 3 months at the vernal equinox. Here's an overview of the 7 keys. Now, if you are taking notes, and I know some of you as good students will be taking notes, don't worry if you don't catch them all, because I'll go over each one in detail, especially the first 3. These have several slides devoted to them because they are the foundation of all 7 as listed here. And if you watch this again, the recording later on YouTube, you can pause it at any place and also contemplate what it says. The first key is the law of vibration. All is mind, thus all is in motion. The second, the law of duality or polarity, understanding opposites. The third, the law of the triangle, the power of manifestation. Fourth, the law of karma and compensation. The fifth, the law of cosmic attunement. Number 6, the law of love. And finally, 7, the law of mission and purpose. So let us begin with the first key, the law of vibration. All is mind. This is the primary and most fundamental key to inner wisdom and to understanding ourselves and nature. This key unlocks the wisdom of the ancients, that we are the cosmic self, and thus we are responsible for the world that we create, that we dwell in, and that dwells in us. Last night, Frater Julian Johnson gave a beautiful presentation on the Trinity of Lights, where he emphasized that we remember that we are all part of the cosmic self, and thus conflict and some of our thoughts can be altered and transformed when we simply shift our awareness to that important fact. We experience 2 worlds. The one that dominates seems to be purely physical, And I know you know friends or you have come across people who believe that that's all there is. It is just a physical, material universe. But we must remember that all is qualia, that which is perceived in consciousness by consciousness. There is only one world, absolute mind or consciousness, and we are not separate from it. Finally, as the Emerald Tablet states, all things have come from the one thing through the meditation of one mind. And this mind is embedded in nature itself, in all created things, including human beings. I will reference Frater Dennis William Houck, a practicing alchemist, many times during this presentation. So let us begin by looking at the Azoth of the philosophers, because it underlies the 7 principles, and particularly the first, that all is mind. This secret diagram and its 7 alchemical operations is attributed to alchemist Basil Valentine, dating from the early 1400s, but was not published until 1659. As alchemist and Rosicrucian Dennis William Houck explains, it was a meditative aid in the alchemist's quest for the discovery of the coveted philosopher's stone. Now you will notice that there is a downward pointing triangle over the face in the central circle. That is a symbol of water, and particularly here, as he tells us, Dennis Houck explains, this downward pointing triangle superimposed over the face of the alchemist is the cipher for the water element, which is used here as a symbol of divine grace pouring down from above. And many of you who are familiar with the famous waterfall meditation that is now accessible through our website, that was performed at a special, I think it's 2006, at a conference. I think it was in Trinidad, that Frater Lonnie Edwards and Grandmaster Julie Scott participated in. This is a wonderful meditation that really exemplifies that pouring down of the water element in a special meditation and visualization. The great work of transcendental alchemy, also called spiritual alchemy, was not only physical, that is, attempting to turn base metal to gold, or in plant alchemy, it was considered sacred inner work. Through ora et labora, this is a phrase familiar to Rosicrucian students, or as we say, work and worship. Ora et labora, literally prayer and work. As Frater Houck explains, this inner work sought the divine presence in all things, the 5th element, or cosmic quintessence, the light of mind that directs the transformation of energy into matter. Frater Houck further states, within the boundary of the triangle, one can see the face of the divine, and the drawing clearly implies that the face of the divine and the face of the alchemist become one at the end of the work. Now, because all is mind and all is in motion, and the law of vibration is a natural law, there are certain caveats that we need to be aware of as human beings. And I've listed them here in a way just to explain to you that because all is vibration, change is inevitable. Life would not exist otherwise. Things arise and subside. They are constantly in a state of transition and transformation. Thus, many occurrences are beyond our control, and they function according to natural law. And it is our understanding of those laws and principles that give us mastery. In addition, to detach from the outcome or result allows us to have mastery or creative power over our circumstances. Now, we do not give up our intentions or desires, but we must place that power in the knowledge of our inner self, the voice of conscience and intuition, remembering the cosmic principle that all is mind. Also knowing that our attitude and choices are within our control. Acting on this knowledge gives us mastery over the law of vibration and change. Now in alchemy, this first key or first step or stage of the 7 principal operations is called calcination. And the reference of the enlargement here of that first ray is from the Rose Quadernal, a beautiful paper by Dennis William Hauck, Searching for the Cosmic Quintessence, How Alchemists Meditated in the Middle Ages and Renaissance or Renaissance. And you may, in the next Rosicrucian Digest coming up very soon, you will perhaps be able to also read that article there. We have printed or pasted resources into the chat, and there are 3 dots at the bottom of the chat, and you may wish to save those if you are interested in accessing the resources for this presentation. So let us understand this first key, that all is mind, all is vibration, all is in motion and thus in transition through this key of calcination. So knowing that all is mind by acknowledging the presence of the divine within requires us to visita, to take the journey into our inner self. The black ray of step 1 in this process thus also points to the hidden stone symbolized by the 5 stars of the cosmic quintessence. The first ray of the Azoth suggests that to begin, we must accept a burning off of the dross matter of our outer self, called the negredo phase or blackening phase, hence the raven or crow as its symbol. And I know if there are bird watchers among you or ornithologists, you would tell me that a crow and a raven are not the same thing, and I am aware of that. But in some texts, it's referred to as a crow, in others as a raven. And here it is a symbol of that first blackening phase. Dennis William Hauck also explains that the skull is a classic symbol of calcination, since once the body or outer matter is burned, it turns first black, then white, as it transforms into ash. And any simple experiment you can perform with plant matter, such as wood, for example, in a fireplace, you'll notice that when it's under heat or burned, it does blacken. And then the hotter it gets and the longer it burns, it disintegrates into a more elemental white ash. The term calcination is related to calcium, a mineral, and calcify, the verb, or to turn to bone, hence the skull. Now, in talking about these things, it is very important also to master non-attachment. To begin the process of inner transformation, we must master letting go. Our order specifies in its instructions for creative visualization that we detach from the outcome. When you do that in visualization, for example, exhale deeply on release of an image. By not holding on too tightly, you can release stress and feel secure in the knowledge that you have set in motion an intention or desire, and just let it go. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Trust in your inner self, that is, in cosmic intelligence, and be alert for opportunities. Then simply be observant. Cosmic coincidences arise in your life all the time. You need merely be aware. Focus on them. Ask the inner self, what do these mean to me? What do they mean to me? The second key is the law of duality, polarity, and balance. And here you see a photograph of our front garden. And this was taken in mid-September, and you will see that it's pouring rain in the background. See actually the rain pooling around the ivy at the base of a large tree. This is the grandmother of all Norway spruces. It's stunning. Its height scrapes the sky. In the foreground, in the very foreground, you will see white flowers. Those are begonias, and some that are hanging in the midground. They're also a kind of weeping begonia. In the midground, the lighter green, you will see a rhododendron. And then that very kind of filigree leaf formation, which looks almost burgundy on my screen, is a large Japanese maple that's in front of my husband's office window on the main floor of our house. Now, I want you to understand the law of duality and polarity by seeing a similar scene. This was taken only a few weeks ago at the end of November this year, and you will see the Norway spruce drooping, its branches heavy with snow. And I stood outside, and you will see also the Japanese maple has lost its leaves. They turned a brilliant crimson and then dropped to the ground as fall progressed. And below that Japanese maple, the rhododendrons, they are hidden under burlap in order to protect them from the extreme cold. And I'm speaking to you right now from that upper floor room, which is my office immediately above my husband's. So, fratres and sorors, I hope that you appreciate the idea of all is mind, all is vibration, in motion, in transition, but also how related that first key is to the law of duality. The Kabbalion offers its own version of 7 Hermetic principles. This New Thought text by William Walker Atkinson was published in 1936. It was, at the time of publication, said that the authors were the 3 initiates. Quite a mysterious designation, but with good evidence, we understand that William Walker Atkinson is in fact the author of this book. Its subtitle is Hermetic Philosophy. According to the Kabbalion, all is vibration, everything is in motion, and without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. The principle of polarity is also expressed in our Rosicrucian studies as the law of duality. Every opposite is identical in nature, but different in degree. Think of hot and cold. We just saw in the photograph, 2 photographs, one from late summer, the other from almost the beginning of winter, late fall. These are varying degrees of the same thing. Merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration. That is the difference, Kabbalion. Thus, mastering the art of mental alchemy suggests that we can change our vibration, our polarity, as well as that of others, including our circumstances. A little bit further about this second important principle and the key to the law of duality is that we learn by contrast. Without evil, we cannot know good, just as darkness is the absence of light. These are but poles of the same thing, and the Hermetist understands the art of transmuting evil into good by means of the principle of polarity, Kabbalion. The second step in the alchemical process is dissolution, and shows the black crow dissolve before its own eyes to reveal its symbolic white or pure part. The book Papyrus, pictured on your screen and mine here on the right, is not only a history of the important invention of books, but also a meditation on good and evil. Author Irene Viejo understands that books can offer us dangerous ideas, but nonetheless, they should not be banned, burned, or sanitized. Children and youth especially need to be able to recognize evil in order to avoid it in themselves and as expressed by others. We use a process of discrimination. We also have rating systems for books, for video games, and for films, because children are very sensitive and they often do require adult supervision and understanding. Although we cannot always monitor what our children observe or read, it is important that they also understand this contrast, that we learn by contrast. Mastering balance and creating harmony between extremes via moderation and self-reflection offers us insight into our own tendencies between, we need to self-reflect, insight into our own tendencies toward extremes. It is really important, my dears, that we know that these things exist in the world. Not that we make a constant diet of watching certain things or programs, etc., but also that we understand that we have our own tendencies in that direction. The author tells us in the book Papyrus that some books were considered lethal, causing, in fact, dire consequences, not just in ancient times, but also in modern times, for their influence on both the gullible and the discerning minds who read them. The Economist, this is an important British magazine that it's a news magazine, it's international, and it's mentioned in the resources. The Economist placed Papyrus on its international list of best books of the year. And the subtitle of that book is The Invention of Books in the Ancient World. I highly recommend it. A perfect symbol of the law of duality, polarity, and balance is, of course, the rose and cross, and here especially as our emblem. The contemplation of the symbol of the rose and cross reveals a profound beauty and harmony found in this law. As Frater Blanco, who is one of our oldest fraters, he is now 97 years old and a dear friend for many years, said that he was contemplating this particular emblem, and it gave him great insight into the laws of cosmology. And I invite you to do the same. Contemplating this symbol unlocks the laws of the cosmos. Seeming opposites in nature also reveal divine harmony. And again, because we learn by contrast, notice the Latin in the circle around the Rosicrucian emblem, ad rosam per crucem, ad crucem per rosam. To the rose by way of the cross, to the cross by way of the rose. And Frater Stephen Kalick, in a recent posting on Facebook, he posted this around November the 11th, said, to my cross, by way of my rose, to my rose, by way of my cross. He also gives us a very important invocation by a Rosicrucian and who science recognizes as the father of modern chemistry, Paracelsus. So just close your eyes for a moment and listen to this invocation. O Holy Spirit, show me what I do not know, and teach me what I cannot do, and give me what I do not have. Grant that you, O Holy Spirit, may dwell within my five senses with the 7 gifts you are to gift me, and I shall have your divine peace. O Holy Spirit, teach me and show me, so that I may live rightly with God and my neighbor. So mote it be. Again, that is an invocation by Paracelsus. Finally, let us look at another kind of ancient drawing here. This is from the epistles or letters of Jacob Boehme. Originally, these were written in 1620 and then published almost a century later in Amsterdam. Here we see the eye of the divine offering guidance to the heart. And with, the kind of open valve here, perhaps it is a representation of the aorta. It is open in a metaphorical sense here to divine inspiration. And the divine offers guidance to the heart, truth and lies, truth and life versus lies and death. In other words, inner versus outer, after the work of mystic Johannes Thaler, who was born in 1300. Can you imagine, in the beginning of the 14th century? Note how both good and evil are contained within the heart. A further elaboration on the law of duality. Relationships are a mirror of our duality. And here we have a symbol for this second step in the alchemical process. The word in Latin here is interiora, or in other words, to go within. I am that is an important assertion in Eastern mysticism. It is the concept that the mirror of our soul personality is found in the other, that is, in our closest relationships. Others reflect back to us both our best selves and our worst selves. What we love and admire in others, we wish to have more of ourselves. Some of these traits include beauty, creativity, intelligence. What we abhor about others are aspects that we reject within our own personalities. Some of these include laziness, procrastination, lack of self-control, and even pettiness. I list those because those are some of the things that I don't like when I see them in other people. And then I should really turn the mirror on myself, because those are things that I sometimes also fall prey to. By the way, that beautiful mandala that we saw, the Azoth, those 7 points referenced also by Paracelsus, he calls the star in man, or the star in humanity, meaning the divine, the master within our inner self. In spiritual alchemy, the second key is called dissolution, in which the outer self further dissolves its attachments and probes its own psyche and psychic self. And here's a little bit more about relationships. But before we get there, I know that there were some questions in the chat a couple of teleconferences ago during the Wednesday teleconference, where someone had asked the question, what is the difference between the soul and the soul personality? And this is another interesting dual aspect of the self. And here's an interesting phrase that was given to our regional or local regional monitor. We have little groups, chapters, lodges, and the smaller groups are called proneus, or in plural, pronei. And the one that I belong to in our region is a proneus. And our regional monitor, he's kind of an administrator, he joined the order many years ago in South Africa, and he met some very interesting frauders and sorors there, one of whom gave him this concept, and he shared that with us recently in a discourse. As he said, we are consciously unconscious in life, but unconsciously conscious when not incarnated in physical form. In other words, the Emerald Tablet tells us, as above, so below, as within, so without. What does that mean? We are consciously unconscious while we're alive. Well, we're conscious, all right. I mean, we talk about being conscious, awake, and aware, especially in a neurological sense. But additionally, we are not conscious of so many things that are going on around us in our environment. Just as I cannot see you, but now there are 309 persons on this call, I know on another level that you are here. And you should feel that togetherness on another level with each other, although we cannot see each other. So during life, we are definitely conscious, but we're unconscious of so much. On the other hand, when we are not in physical form, in between incarnations, we are unconsciously conscious because we are absorbed into pure consciousness, the Akashic field, the cosmic soul, the one mind. So again, to explain the difference between soul and soul personality, the soul is the one soul. This is probably the most profound insight that most of you have had as you journey along the mystical path. You realize that I'm different, I'm unique, but everyone shares the same soul, the source or universal intelligence of divinity that expresses through the voice of the master within. The soul personality, on the other hand, is the individual you that comprises this particular body, this history, these memories, these emotions, these quirks, preferences, thoughts, and behaviors. The unique person that you are is the soul personality. Both coexist as you. The familiar physical self that constantly changes its cells, its emotions and thoughts, that is what we call the outer self, the personality as it expresses itself in this incarnation. The soul with a capital S is the unchanging you that has always existed and will always exist. Brothers and sorors, when did you not exist? I know that you can think about, oh, my birthday occurs on such and such a date in such and such a year, but don't you feel that you've always existed? It's very difficult for us, and those who fear death fear a kind of disappearing of the self, but feel reassured that you have always existed and you will always exist. So let us now quickly go to the third key, the law of the triangle. As our order teaches, this law explains the connectedness of spirit, energy, or matter to mind or thought and to soul, cosmic essence in our teachings. In mastering the law of duality and balance, we have insight into the law of the triangle. Opposites attract in magnetism and combine in the law of the triangle. Thesis and antithesis often are in conflict with each other, but when they collide, they do create synthesis and a new creation is formed. We also understand, especially if we study science, that like also prefers like, as in the mirroring of desires in the law of attraction. Just as a thought form leads to manifestation, which also engenders karmic consequences, which we will look at next. Thoughts are things, says an old Rosicrucian adage, that reflects their power, and thus we are exhorted, or we're encouraged to choose not only our words wisely, but our thoughts as well. In alchemy, the third stage or third ray of the azole, the alpha and the omega process, is the operation of separation. Here, the earthbound soul bird splits into two white birds. They retrieve the saved remains of the first two operations. This is the first coming together of soul and spirit, and the newly acquired elevation of consciousness allows discernment of what is worthy of being saved from the dregs of one's everyday personality. Again, the reference here is to that paper by Dennis William Houck, Searching for the Cosmic Quintessence, published in 2014, volume 10 of the Rosicrucian Journal. How do we master peace profound in that case? As Ralph M. Lewis suggested, self-discipline is the key to understanding our triune nature of soul, mind, and body, to be governed by our choices, by soul first, then mind, then body, to avoid suffering. That does not mean to neglect the body, but we must discipline the mind to avoid worry and to undo stress by turning within frequently for soul guidance. The fourth key, that brings us the law of the triangle and the law of duality of relationships to the law of karma and compensation. Karma is created by the threefold mechanism of desire, action, and memory. Each leads to the next. The memory of an action, like eating a lovely and delicious piece of chocolate cake, engenders desire for more, especially next time, and therefore a repeated action, and thus a memory. Nothing is lost, since all is mind, again, the first principle. All is part of the ever-transforming Akashic field. To master the law of karma, we need simply remember to become aware of its operation and thus transcend its effects by altering our thoughts and behaviors. We must learn to step back from the outer self and observe ourselves from the point of view of the master within. As we become more conscious of the consequences of our thoughts and actions, we can change our habits and thus reverse any negative outcomes or negative karma. We can transform our lives in a more positive and harmonious direction. In alchemy, the fourth ray has one symbol, and you see it there. It's a circle with a dot in the center. It is the same for both the sun and gold. And the goal is conjunction. This is the fourth stage, or as Frater Houck explains, recombining of the saved elements into a whole new physical incarnation. The Latin rectificando refers to setting things right. It is also the marriage of the sun and the moon, and is the transition point between working with the first three operations and the last three. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Karmic compensation is particularly applicable in relationships. Remember this quotation by Harvey Spencer Lewis, because if you receive these texts on a weekly basis, you will remember this one. It is a metaphysical fact that for each minute of time we spend in thoughts of unfavorable impressions, unkind criticism, or hate toward any person, there will be hours of physical and mental suffering as a reaction. However, this is not a threat, but a simple fact, exactly as Harvey Spencer Lewis says. It is a metaphysical fact. When we exercise forgiveness, compassion, and learn from past relationships and our past actions, we don't beat ourselves up about them, but we learn to transform. And that's particularly important when these actions or thoughts or relationships have caused harm or are traumatic. Then we can move on with confidence into the future and even into our next incarnation without fear. Rectificando, to make right. Fifth, The fifth key, the law of cosmic attunement. Each person has the inner aspiration to attune with that which is greater than oneself. The finest vehicle for this pursuit is meditation and contemplative prayer in seeking union with absolute mind, whether transcendent of the outer self or as immanent in nature, as so beautifully expressed by Michael Shaluli in his presentation the other night. Such spiritual fermentation involves a sacrifice of the outer nature and also is called putrefaction, corresponding with the fifth alchemical stage. Hauck describes this process with the analogy of turning grape juice into wine, where a new life force is formed. Such attunement and desire for mystical union as daily practice is one of the great keys to inner wisdom. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, it's very important that we have a quiet place, even if it is like depicted here, a little shed or someplace where you can go to be alone with yourself, your own private sanctum, so that you may visit your own inner sanctum. The fifth circle of the Azoth is under the inscription in Venis, which means you will discover. This is the operation of fermentation in which the mystic substance forms, the ambrosia of the gods, which represents the first lasting solidification of the conjoining of soul and spirit. Again, from Dennis William Hauck, Searching for the Cosmic Quintessence. Number 6, the law of love. If you would understand the philosophy of mental and spiritual creation, generation and regeneration, you must understand and study this Hermetic principle, the Kabbalion. Love is the great power that aligns us with the creativity of cosmic intelligence. As the supreme luminary on our Rosicrucian altars, it signifies our inner light and highest aspirations as we seek illumination and progress on the mystical path of inner wisdom. This sixth stage of the alchemical process is distillation and is symbolized in the Azoth by a unicorn lying in front of a rose bush. Hauck describes this stage as the necessary raising of the psyche, the highest level possible. And you know, many of you, that psyche in Greek means soul. Love is of cosmic origin and reflects the harmony of balance in all universal forces. That is from the Neophyte monographs. The Latin occultum, as you see in the small diagram here near the unicorn and the rose bush, means secret or hidden. Repeated distillation further purifies and concentrates the spiritual essence into the mother of the stone. Lastly, the law of mission and purpose. Ralph M. Lewis wrote about the 7 steps to attainment, suggesting that one of these is application. Life is to live, be productive, and exert your powers. As well, he states that aspiration is the principal choice in life, to have an ideal and to transcend the mundane. Indeed, whenever you wish to accomplish anything, ask first, does this intention or desire serve the greater good? Think of someone right now you feel exemplifies this cosmic principle. See this person now in your mind's eye and send him or her thoughts of love and gratitude. In alchemy, the 7th stage is represented by an androgynous youth emerging from an open grave, with the Latin word lapidum, meaning the stone. That appears on the outer ring next to that final 7th circle. This is the operation of coagulation. As Frater Hauck states, this resurrection or new life allows the initiate to be of greater service by being a permanent vehicle of consciousness that embodies the highest aspirations and evolution of mind. He also, in his paper, The Cosmic Quintessence, talks about the secret eighth key. And I want to introduce you to another book on the Economist's Best Books of the Year list. The author emphasizes how far we have come in our understanding of ourselves and nature. And this book is entitled The Song of the Cell. But he also emphasizes for us how very little we actually still know. Dennis Hauck explains that there is another eighth step concealed in the mandala of the Azoth. And note that the Azoth itself is a circle. Plus, of course, the face of the alchemist and the face of the divine are in an eighth circle within that. In the study of alchemy, mystics sought to reach the apparent final seventh step, coagulation, but such an undertaking implies the highest motives, and it is unlikely that any of us currently exemplify the eighth key or rose quartz state, divine consciousness in every moment of existence. That is the end goal, fratres and sorors, which we are always striving for. Like the human cells of which we are composed, as described in this magnificent book, The Song of the Cell, we are intelligent, independent beings. Each cell is also an intelligent, independent being, but we are also one of many that work in concert together, each partaking in the divine mystery of light, life, and love. To conclude, this beautiful painting by Spanish Rosicrucian artist Nicomedes Gomez is entitled Vida, Luz, Amor, Life, Light, and Love. Its ennobling composition combines all 7 keys to inner wisdom and implies the final transformation of the 8th key. Sorores and fratres, by applying these principles and becoming more deeply aware of the functioning of cosmic law in our own lives, we can grow in wisdom and be of greater service to others in the continued evolution of our soul personalities. Here again are the 7 keys in review. Not the 7 keys, but 7 keys that somehow, by some kind of intelligent coincidence, when I first created this presentation in 7 slides, correspond beautifully with the 7 steps or principles in alchemy. First of all, the law of vibration, all is mind. Secondly, the law of duality or polarity, understanding opposites. Third, the law of the triangle, the power of manifestation. Fourth, the law of karma and compensation. Fifth, the law of cosmic attunement. 6, the law of love. 7, the law of mission and purpose. Now, fratres and sorors, we will very briefly, in the 1 minute that we have left, is to perform a kind of brief meditation. So as you observe the candle flame, please know that your inner light also shines brightly. So close your eyes. Sit straight in your seat with your spine erect and feet flat on the floor if possible. This way, hopefully, you are not sleeping, but rather also awake and aware. With your eyes closed, inhale deeply. And do this about 3 times, slowly exhaling to your own pace, again remaining alert and aware. Draw into your own personal holy of holies, your own inner sanctum, your own celestial sanctum. May the God of my heart sanctify this attunement with the celestial sanctum. Now ask the God of your heart to open you to the infinite and the eternal. Be aware. Open your heart to the many millions who may not be mystics or Rosicrucians, but those who also travel parallel paths and yearn to share their light with us. Remember the preciousness of all life forms. Ask each to feel calm and the beauty of peace profound. Feel the presence of the hundreds who are also with you on this teleconference. Feel the presence of thousands of spiritual lights surrounding us and supporting us, illuminating our life's path. Make their holy presence all around you, the center of your being. God of our hearts, God of our realization, we seek with great intensity to feel ineffable love for all precious beings everywhere. Make us better aware of your laws and principles and guide us with thy gentle presence. So mote it be. Thank you, fratres, sorors. Good night.